There's an art to managing. Most people don't know how to do it, but you'll never learn how to do it if you think you know everything already. You have to acknowledge what you don't know and put the work in to learn it. The Art of Managing and more on the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Riley, and I got my two top guys with me, Brooke and Amari. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Friday. We survived for now.
Yep.
We survived another week, right, Amari?
Bright and bushy-tailed, ready to go.
That's right. Hey, sometimes success, folks, is just living to the end of the week and surviving, meeting payroll, got your bills paid, maybe a little in the bank. You know, let's not make it sexy here. Corporate jet can wait, right? Although I can tell you one thing: if I won the lottery, nobody would know. All you'd see is that corporate jet, right? Oh, Jay, my rich uncle left me something. So, well, listen, we want to talk. We've had an interesting week because, and it was capped by a great article I suggest everybody read. It's in the Atlantic Monthly. You can go online and read it. It's written by David Brooks. And I forgot the title, but the title is something about how the elite universities ruined America. Is that what it was, Brooke?
Yeah, just the evolution of the Ivy League system.
Yeah. And it talks about hiring, managing, how you learn, how you don't learn. I don't want to get into necessarily the weeds on this in-depth story, but it is, if you've got your own business, you're getting into real estate, you're dealing with all the conventional wisdom out there, the traps, et cetera, et cetera. This is really a worthwhile article to read. But we've been dealing with managing subs, managing foremen, longtime foremen. And I want to share with all of you, what we have learned. So, Brooke, why don't you lead us off? What's been your takeaways this week on the art of managing?
Well, I think it all kind of comes back to just keeping it simple in your managing style, getting back to the basics. I know just getting down to the specifics, pre-COVID, we had a pretty successful process, how we're tracking, our payroll, our extra work, material subs, all the stuff that goes into, managing a job from like a finance standpoint. But when COVID happened, we had to adapt, which I think it was a good thing. We instituted some new processes where now everything's on an online system, spreadsheets. We have our VAs who update them for the foreman. But I think what we've realized is we might need to go back to...
Hey, Brooke, sorry. Tell the people what the VAs are.
The VAs are virtual assistants in the Philippines. We have 3 ladies who each one kind of works in a specific sector in our company. We have one who works pretty close with me and our other controller from an accounting standpoint. We have one who works a lot with Amari, on returning customer emails and calls and helping scheduling work. And then our other VA works with Lindsay on the property side of things. So each of them assist us in doing certain aspects. But, when COVID happened, we had to adapt like all businesses, adapt or die. And I came up with a system where we're entering all of our time, each employee's time for each job on a Google Sheet that gets sent to our VAs, and then they handle uploading it to our payroll system. But we've realized that we've noticed some issues within, our jobs where, extra work might not be getting tracked properly. Sometimes hours aren't correct. So I think what we've realized this past week is we need to go back to, not in full, go back to how it used to be. We're still going to use our online system, but we need to tweak our process to kind of streamline some of these problems that we've encountered. And I think this past week, it reared its ugly head, especially on Monday night when we had that big meeting. So what I took away, and to make a long story short, what I took away from this past week is we've got some problems that are fixable. We've addressed what those problems are. I'm starting to come up with a plan. I'll review it with you two. And we need to we'll begin instituting that. We've already started instituting that this past week, but it'll kind of go into full effect next week.
Yeah, let me just kind of recap and summarize, and you correct me, Brooke, if I'm not summarizing it correctly. But folks, it all comes down to fail to plan, plan to fail. If you don't have a plan in place for whatever you're doing, and you're not measuring it and you're not tracking it, then you may end up in a dead end street. You may going from Cleveland to Chicago. You may end up in Columbus, and that's what happens both on the contracting side and on the property side, where you buy a piece of property, you're going to rent it out. You got the ROI all established. I want to make this amount of money, X, Y, and Z. Well, did you make it? Yes or no? And when did you go off course? And I think, let me tie this into this article in the Atlantic Monthly, because his indictment of elite American universities is that they're teaching people how to jump through hoops, not to necessarily think for themselves. Thinking for yourself is establishing what your goal is and what's your plan to meet that goal. Thinking for yourself is then looking at that plan throughout that process, throughout that journey, and asking yourself, is this working or not? Now, from the contracting side, what we discovered was the foremen were paying lip service to the work order. They weren't even tracking it. They were just, they'd gotten so used to doing these jobs that they just went to sleep. And then they woke up in Columbus and not in Chicago. Did I capture that the right way, Brooke?
Yeah, I think as from a big picture standpoint, that's the overall problem. I know one thing that at least I find really rewarding is kind of trying to solve or troubleshoot these problems from like a micro standpoint, like what things can we start to institute now? Because I think it's important it's important to have a goal. I know, Mike, you use that analogy a lot. You're driving from here to Chicago, but then within that goal, there's certain checkpoints that you need to hit. You need to make sure that you've got your gas, your tires are filled up. By hour 2, you'll be in Toledo. So relating that to what we're going through is, you have an overall problem. Okay, so now you got to get down to the nitty gritty of, what things can we do to prevent these problems from happening again. And I think it's important, not only from, a business standpoint, but, your personal life. If you've just bought a house, if the goal is to fix it up and rent it out and make a couple, $1,000 a month on a profit, okay, great. That's your goal. Now get down to the details. What are you going to do to reach that goal?
Right. And let's not make this into some just little magazine article. Let's kind of drill into that a little. When we talk about a plan, and you're absolutely right, Brooke, driving from Cleveland, I mean, we all live in Cleveland here, so let's go Cleveland to Chicago. You want to know, okay, well, in 1 hour, I should be at Sandusky. In 2 hours, I should be in Toledo. In 2.5 hours, I'm going to take a break because I'm in Indiana now. And 4 hours, I'm here. So you're always measuring where you are. Now, if you take it into a contracting job, you have a plan. Like, we're painting the house. Let's just say we're painting the house. You're painting the front of the house I've got 20 hours to do the front of the house. Okay, well, I got me and a guy. At the end of the day, we should be done, right? We should be done with that house. Working a long day, 20 hours, we should be done. If we only got it halfway done, what does that tell you? Tells you may be off on that estimate, right? What happens if the guy you're working with is taking forever to just paint something? Well, you better lose that guy, or he's just going to drag the other three sides down the tubes. What if the customer's coming out and being an idiot and standing over you? Make sure you're doing X, Y, and Z, which is not in the scope of the work. So those signals are getting flashed to you in real time. And you need to adjust your plan. In some cases, it may be to walk. Let's say you're in real estate and you bought this house. Well, you better have a measuring stick at somewhere along the line of how much you're actually going to spend to get this ready to go. And what do you do when you see that all of a sudden this isn't working? Well, one of the buttons you may press is the eject button, which tells you to sell the house. Look, I got to cut my losses now. This is not working. But unless you have a goal and a plan that's you're measuring, you could get lost in a hurry. What's your thoughts, Amari?
Yeah, my thoughts would be that you need that goal, the plan, and the tracking as kind of like the foundational pillars of whatever you're trying to do. And, for the contracting side of what we do, that's the estimate, that's the work order, contract, the draws. We have these things in place. So kind of getting back to Brooks', initial point of getting back to the basics and, just adjusting with COVID. It's like, it's one thing to be flexible, as the market changes, as hiring changes, and these changes are just going to happen. That's just life. But you don't want it to get into a territory of chaos, where those foundational pillars are ignored or just made to be less enforced in certain times for no particular strategic reason. So when you have those pillars in place, the contract, work order, estimate, or whatever those things are, the goal, plan, tracking of the plan, keep that pretty simple, just anticipating that something's going to come up that you didn't anticipate. And then you can deal with that and come up with ideas to be flexible for that. But we don't need to be flexible for, those main important pillars, of the business.
Yeah, we're talking about in this podcast the art of managing, and managing means managing yourself and also managing the job. And quite frankly, what I've seen in my 71 years on this planet, and 50 years running a business, is I don't think people really appreciate how tricky it is to manage yourself and to manage a project. And I think a lot of times businesses fail, investors fail, in real estate, is because they're getting too big too quick. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I'm talking to some investor calling me, and they're talking about, well, I'm going to buy this house, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to buy 5 other houses, and I'm going to build. I said, wait a minute. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Let's just make sure you're making money on this one job, okay? And do you have a plan of how you're going to make this money? And I think that's why a lot of times the best real estate investment that you do is to buy a duplex, live on the second floor, and rent out the first floor and just see how it goes and get some real-time experience before you buy another house that you're not living in. So it's almost like, the astronauts going to the moon. They didn't go to the moon in 1962. They first circled the Earth 3 times and then landed in the ocean. And then they did Gemini, where they did a spacewalk, and then they did practice their docking, and then you know, 8 years later, they're going to the moon. But if you want to get into real estate, you live in California, and you've never done this before, and you're buying a property in Cleveland, why don't you just take the money and flush it down the toilet? Because that's what's going to happen. So, and then you have to manage subs. You got to find subs. You got to manage subs. You got to manage the money that's going out. You got to manage the loan. Okay, how's this going to work? So managing is something you have to learn. And two, it's how you learn. Your thoughts, Brooke?
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. If you've been listening to this podcast, then you understand or should understand the pitfalls of investing in Cleveland real estate. Say you're looking for an investment property to rent, and these are the things that could happen and often do. You overpay for a house, and it's in the ghetto. Then you find that it's a money pit with endless surprise repairs. Your hapless property manager, who may be the brother-in-law of the realtor, gets a tenant who after 3 months stops paying the rent. Then the toilet explodes, and you have nobody to repair it because, guess what? The property manager is not answering the phone. Yep, that's the ugly side of the Cleveland real estate market. But we have a solution. Buy one of our properties. It's been inspected. It's been vetted. It's in a rock-solid part of town. It comes with a Gold Star tenant paying top dollar rent, and we manage it. Call us at 216-371-8160 if you're interested.
Yeah, no, I mean, managing it can be applied to a lot of things. I think when you are getting into investing in a property, or I mean, hell, even if it's just your own personal home, you've got a lot of balls you got to juggle, but you better have a plan. If not, you're just flying blind, and I don't know. That always just fuels anxiety for me. If there is no plan. I used to live like that a while back. I don't anymore, and I prefer my life now.
A little more organized.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Amari?
Yeah, I agree. It's night and day. And then for me, it's like I look back and wonder how I even made it this far without those foundational pillars. And knowing that things happen, things come up. Sometimes you veer a little bit left, and maybe you add a couple minutes to your trip, just getting back to that analogy. But you get back on the road knowing that you have a real destination and aren't just driving for the sake of driving. So
Right. That's the first trap you make. Let me just hit on a few quickies real quick about the art of managing people working for you. Okay. If first of all, they're not your friend, you're going to treat them with respect. You're not going to use them, but you have to understand that they're not going to listen to you if they think you're an idiot, which means you have to know that plan inside and out. You have to be prepared. You have to work longer hours than your employees. You can't be working on your golf game when you're initially investing in real estate or, starting a business, right? You are making a commitment, and you've got to get your shit together and know that plan inside and out, so that when you do have that person working with you that you hired, you know exactly what they're supposed to do and how long it's going to take them. And you keep it simple. So if you're hiring a plumber, basically saying, hey, I need you to come in and fix this toilet and fix this vanity. Okay, how much? And then you're going to go check the work, because you assume, if you've never worked with them, they're incompetent. They're going to leave a mess. They're going to smoke in the house. They're going to